examples of matching questions, and that's where you'll also find some of these guidelines for matching and some good examples. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look on page 2 of your assessment guide and just take a look at matching. Of course, they're easy to grade unless you're like a second grade teacher where matching means you draw lots of lines, and that just makes me crazy to grade them. But they're easy to grade. The correct choice for one is a distractor for another. So you're really not having to come up with a lot of distractors because it's either the right answer or not. And a lot of times they're not able to deduce the answers because they have so many. A couple of things to think about. These can be difficult to write, and the choices should have a consistent format. But one thing I really did not know was that research shows that you shouldn't have more than 10 matching items together. So like if you're doing the Civil War or Revolutionary War and you have a lot of terms and dates and things, you need to break those up. So maybe if the test is very long, you want to have 10 together, break it up at least in space. Do you see what I'm saying? So that there's like a visible break, and then you can give them more if you need to. So that's kind of, I think for children, you imagine seeing A to Z and 1 through 26, that's a little mind-boggling. So we want to make sure that we do that. Another thing that they've talked about is that you should match homogeneous things. It should be names to, dates, or something, a war to the date. It should not be a complete mix of things. Okay, so that just some things to think about. That isn't something that I've really thought about with matching before, but that's what the research shows. Okay, so I was going to say, go on to the next slide. Okay, what am I supposed to put? There we go. So here are the guidelines for matching, and like I said, they are all here for you. Okay, they're here for you to give those clear directions. Keep your items matched to be short, 10 or less. Okay, don't mix those names and dates. So those are the things that we've just kind of talked about. Okay, the next kind of test is expanded matching. And this, I'm sure you've used before, but you've just never thought of it in this way. Okay, so expanded matching, if you'll take a look at your assessment packet on page 3, they have an example for you at the top. Okay, and so here you can see it has a person, the activity, and the time, but they're all mixed up. Okay. Another thing with matching is you need to have more choices than there actually are questions, and I forgot to mention that. I know some of you on your SMART lessons, you have matching, and I've done this before. When you get down to the last one, the kids go, woo, this one is really hard because there's only one answer left. You need to have more choices for them than there are actual questions. So now in my class, it's a big joke. Everyone's like, can you get this one? But I've never really thought about, that was, that really isn't the smartest thing for me to do. I need to give them an additional choice. So here in expanded matching, they're still easy to grade. They still have these same, things that make it easier. Multiple options prevents the deducing the answers. Now, in expanded matching, another positive is that their knowledge of a number of factors can be probed. So if you look at this U.S. history, they really have to know this material rather than just make some guesses. I'm looking back in this packet. The one thing with expanded matching is you have to give them a separate answer sheet whenever you're going to do this. Okay. So one thing I thought about for elementary schools, maybe if you do fractions and decimals and percents, expanded matching might be good for you to try that because they have those individual columns, and then they can, choose from each one. Which one is the fraction for this, the decimal and percent. Lower grades, can y'all think of any way that expanded matching would be? Maybe with habitats or adaptations maybe. So those are expanded matching. But they're fairly difficult to write. I mean, you really do have to put a lot of thought into these different choices that you're going to add, and they should always have the consistent format. Okay? Any questions on expanded matching? Okay. All right, next we're going to talk about alternate choice. And when I heard alternate choice, I thought, what is that? Well, it's pick A or B. I mean, that is alternate choice. So I thought, boy, they're really getting fancy here in assessment talk. But, they only have 2 choices, so they're very easy to grade. And they're very easy to use with vocabulary and to really test that these kids know what this means. The one negative is that they have a 50-50 chance of being right. So, we've all had students that we've seen them and think, wow, how did they do this? Well, a lot of them are really good guessers, or they just got very lucky that day. So you really want to be careful in how you use this alternate choice, okay? Because if we're using it as an end of, unit test, you can see that they could just maybe guess and get most of them right and really not be able to show you or anything that they know about this unit that you've studied. Okay? All right, true, false. Now, true, false, Marzano does not even talk about using true, false. That does not mean that there's not a place for it in assessments. It is easy to grade, okay? But the cons are big cons, okay? It's difficult to write good ones. So if you think you want to have a very viable distractor, or one that, you know, is close to being the answer, it's hard to think of that. I think sometimes we're like, oh, we're being too tricky. But sometimes with true and false, it's just either the right answer or, you know, something that they can definitely figure out is not correct, okay? Also, they have another 50-50 shot at getting it right. The last one was, I didn't think about this, but a lot of students will create a bias if you do not form the question correctly. So if you'll go and look